A contingency approach to management is based on the theory that management effectiveness is contingent, or dependent, upon the interplay between the application of management behaviors and specific situations. In other words, the way you manage should change depending on the circumstances. One size does not fit all. The contingency approach to management finds its foundation in the contingency theory of leadership effectiveness, developed by management psychologist Fiedler. The theory states that leadership effectiveness, as it relates to group effectiveness, is a component of two factors: task motivation, or relation motivation and circumstances. You measure task motivation or relation motivation by the least preferred coworker (LPC) scale. The LPC scale asks the manager to think of the person they least like working with and then rate that person on a set of questions, each involving an 8-point scale. For example, a score of 1 would be uncooperative, and a score of 8 would be cooperative. Fiedler believed that people with a higher LPC score try to maintain harmony in their work relationships, while people with a lower LPC score are motivated to focus on task accomplishment. The theory states that task or relations motivations is contingent upon whether the manager is able to both control and affect the group's situational favorability, or outcome. According to the theory, you can assess situational favorability by 3 factors. Leader-member relations. This factor addresses the manager's perception of his cooperative relations with his subordinates. In other words, is the cooperation between you and your employees good or bad? Task structure. This factor relates to whether the structure of the work task is highly structured, subject to standard procedures, and subject to adequate measures of assessment. Certain tasks are easy to structure, standardize, and assess, such as the operation of an assembly line. Position power. This factor asks if the manager's level of authority is based on punishing or rewarding behavior. For example, does the manager derive his authority from providing bonuses for meeting sales goals or terminating employees for failure to meet the goals? The combination of leader-member relations, task structure, and position power create different situations that have been coined octants 1 through 8. You can divide these 8 situations into 3 broad categories: favorable situations, intermediate situations, and unfavorable situations. According to the theory, each situation is handled the best by either high or low LPC managers. The theory argues that high LPC managers are most effective at influencing employee group behavior in intermediate situations, while low LPC managers are most effective in favorable or unfavorable situations. The concept is far simpler than it appears. Let's use an example to clarify it. Let's say you are hired as an outside consultant for a motorcycle company to assess management effectiveness. You decide to use the contingency management approach to assess and advise the company. You begin by testing each member of the management team to determine his or her LPC score. You then determine the type of situations that exist at the company and determine that most of the situations are either unfavorable or favorable situations. You advise the company to train its management to facilitate managers with low LPC scores, since they are best suited for managing most of the situations at the company. This makes sense at a factory because a low LPC motivated person is motivated to focus on task completion, which is very important in production tasks. You have matched the management type most effective for dealing with the situation. The contingency approach to management is grounded in Fiedler's contingency theory of leadership effectiveness. The theory argues that a manager's effectiveness is based upon the interplay of task or relation motivation and the circumstance. In other words, certain circumstances require different management approaches with a focus either on motivating for task completion or maintaining harmonious group relations. You can determine whether a situation is favorable, intermediate, or unfavorable based upon the level and combination of leader-member relations, task structure, and position power. Managers with high LPC scores are best at managing employees in intermediate situations, while managers with low LPC scores are best at managing employees in favorable or unfavorable situations.